it sets up the rematch in the next election, whenever it's going to be held, between Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney.
The Liberals are starting to crack. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we have not one, but two Liberals starting to fracture and going against their own government, going against Mark Carney. This is early. Is Mark Carney going to be able to hold this together? We've also got Air Canada getting a deal. We've got a home invader who attacks a man sleeping in his apartment. The homeowner is getting charged for defending his own life in his own house. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, we got Marty up north here saying, make no mistake, inflation is going back up. The only thing that will cool it is if Ottawa stops printing money and its reckless spending. Ottawa needs to cut $400 billion from its budget, but Carney is doing the opposite. That's what we're seeing here. Key inflation indicators and the target range. Well, we've been out of that target range for a long time. We barely dipped back in for a bit. Now we're popping back out again here. If you saw the previous video, that post with Pierre Poilievre pointing out that Mark Carney has driven away $63 billion of investment. He's got outrageous spending planned, which is going to break the bank, far worse than Trudeau. This is going to get much worse. We have to get rid of Mark Carney. He is slated to be the worst prime minister in Canadian history. Canada money supply. I mean, turn off the money printer. Every time they print money, it devalues the current money we have. It's like stealing right out of our bank accounts. Moving ahead, we got this one from Blacklock's reporter. So Brian Mulroney, this is sparking some serious controversy here because it says federal agency secretly changed its rules on historic designations rather than honor Brian Mulroney as a national historic person, according to Access to Information requests. Members of the Historic Sites and Monument Board held a lively debate 4 months after Mulroney's death on whether to grant him the same tribute given his predecessors. So if you look in the government's website right now, it says prime ministers are not a part of this rule. 25 years. You don't have to wait 25 years. They can do it right away. And they have done this right away, just months after Pierre Elliott Trudeau died and basically every other prime minister. But they secretly had this meeting. And from the minutes here, it says the board ultimately decided the specific guideline should indicate that 25 years after death is an appropriate delay before defining a statement of commemorative intent for a prime minister, said minutes. Under the new policy, the board would wait a quarter century to establish whether there was sufficient published material to prepare a submission report on a former prime minister. So Stephen Guilbeault, this is coming from Parks Canada, who did this. They secretly changed the rules so they wouldn't have to recognize a conservative prime minister. This is so disgraceful. No point voting on anything. Just secretly change the rules. A little update to this story. We now have the government trying to correct this problem because it's a political disaster. Parks Canada hurried to issue public designation of Brian Mulroney as a National Historic Person. It followed discussions of the Historic Monument Board voted in secret session to delay 25 years. This is disgraceful. I think this came from Ben Mulroney absolutely blasting the Liberals on his show. It was a good public blasting there. I mean, defending his father. And this is what we get from the Liberals. Just they mess up every single thing and they have to backtrack and trying to salvage their pathetic display here. The Liberals ruin every single thing they touch. Moving ahead, this is a real blood boiler here. We've homeowner charged after altercation with man who broke into his home in Lindsay. A guy breaks into a guy's house. He gives him the old rough and tough pow pow stuff. The intruder has to go to the hospital and now the homeowner is being charged? Alleged intruder and homeowner are both facing charges. So Kawartha Lakes Police Service said it responded to the call at 3:20 a.m. According to the police, the resident had woken up to find an intruder inside his apartment. The two had an altercation. The intruder suffered life-threatening injuries, police said, and later airlifted to the hospital. That's the risk you take being a home invader. If you're breaking into someone's personal sacred space and the person who owns the place or the person who lives there rents the place gives you the rough and tough pow pow stuff, then that's your problem. This homeowner should not go to jail. This homeowner should not receive any charges whatsoever. Police say the resident is facing charges for aggravated assault and assault with a weapon. The alleged intruder, 41, is also facing charges including breaking and entering and possession of a weapon for dangerous purposes. Police say the man was also already wanted for unrelated offenses. This guy is already a criminal, wanted for other things, breaks in, and the homeowner is getting charged. We should be giving the homeowner a medal. We should be giving this guy a parade and rolling out a red carpet and commending this citizen for protecting the rest of us by dishing out the punishment to this criminal that the government and the police will not do. This is what's wrong with our country. Liberals have made it so criminals can break into your house and you can't defend yourself. On the flip side, then what stops someone from going and attacking a liberal politician? Are they allowed to defend themselves, or is it a political reason why you can defend yourself? I'm not saying anyone should do that, but what if 10 of these wanted criminals broke into Mark Carney's house in the middle of the night? Now, granted, he's got security, but just saying theoretically. And Mark Carney defended defended himself, he would be charged. So he has to just pray that they don't end him. This is the country we live in now. One final point I want to make of this is the home invader came into his house with a weapon. This guy didn't come in with a banana or a kazoo. He came in with a weapon, and a Canadian can't defend themselves when a person comes into their house at 3 a.m. with a weapon. Are you kidding me? We should have castle law, but unfortunately we've had complete buffoons running our country and our justice system the past 10 years. Next up, we got an update on the Air Canada situation. They have come to a deal, but first let's look at this. We've got Air Canada staff in other countries who can't get home. It says, hey Mario, I'd like to stay anonymous. I'm a flight attendant with Air Canada stuck in Rome with my crew and 2 others since the 14th. Our pilots got sent home. We're still stranded abroad with no intention from Air Canada to bring us home. Some crews have been stuck in India since the 12th. We need to let the public know that our company has no intention of helping stranded crews get home. Our union is currently trying to help us, but it has proven difficult. If the public knew this, Air Canada would get their crap together and send us home. This is ridiculous. They should file a class action lawsuit against them for abandoning them in another country. We've also got this. So coming from Liberal, Christina Tesser-Dirksen, this is a new Liberal MP. I absolutely empathize with the situation that flight attendants and travelers are currently facing. I have spoken with acquaintances close to airline operations and management. We have discussed the unfair circumstances the attendants are in. I am disappointed by our government's decision to trigger the Section 107 at the speed at which it occurred. This is funny. She is clearly not in the inner circle of Mark Carney and Brookfield's senior advisor, Callan, the former CEO of Air Canada, and his many millions of dollars invested in Air Canada stocks. She's not in that inner circle. She doesn't really get what's going on. The fact that she's actually calling out the Carney government, this is a Liberal calling out the Carney government. While we are not in complete alignment, while I acknowledge the minister is in a position where she must consider the unprecedented economic uncertainty that our country faces and Canada's ability to bear the grounding of major airline. I'm dedicated to the workers, blah, blah, blah. The Liberals are divided. They're already starting to fracture and crack. I believe Nate Erskine-Smith was saying the same thing. Nate Erskine-Smith posting this one, some labor disputes are complicated. This one isn't. Air Canada should pay and treat its flight attendants fairly. I mean, Nate Erskine-Smith was the housing minister briefly for a couple months and then got ousted. It was the only reason why he was sticking around. Otherwise, he was just going to retire. Trudeau said, hey, we'll make you housing minister. He became that. Then Mark Carney kicked him out. So is he trying to get a jab back at Mark Carney? Maybe. But the fact that she's doing it too, the Liberals are starting to crack already. Now, looking at the situation here with Air Canada, we're looking for a solution here. Our members want a solution here, but the solution has to be found at the bargaining table. The two sides struck a deal shortly before 4:30 a.m. 4:23 a.m., I believe. Ground pay absolutely should be in there. We're so happy that we finally reached this industry-leading deal that allows our flight attendants to be compensated for their important work that they perform on the ground. This is coming from Air Canada's Executive Vice President, Mark Nasser. They finally reached an agreement here. So it says it's a tentative deal, as it says here. QP announces union and management have reached a tentative deal. Air Canada says flights will gradually resume. So apparently they're going to resume this afternoon at some point. So next up, we got Scott Reed here on CTV. Was wondering if he was going to have a full meltdown. He's buttoned up today, not dropping any F-bombs.
This is one big hurdle crossed now for Pierre Poilievre, who heads for the House of Commons. Your thoughts on this widely expected victory for the Conservative leader?
No surprises. He was always going to win this riding. It was, as you said, selected because it is the safest of safe ridings for Conservative. Gets him into the House of Commons.
It wasn't selected. Damien Kirk offered it, and Pierre didn't know that was coming. Damien and his wife offered it up.
And frankly, from a political standpoint, it sets up the sequel. It sets up the rematch in the next election, whenever it's going to be held, between Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney. And I think that's what really the significance is. We're going to see these two now locked in combat politically in the fall, through the winter, maybe through this year and into next, but eventually we're going to see them go toe-to-toe again at the ballot box.
Let's talk about that.
So I agree with that. So the Liberals are hoping that Pierre Poilievre isn't the leader after his leadership review. That's not going to happen. I mean, really, it's for him to lose, but Pierre will be judged on how he handles everything in House of Commons. Going toe-to-toe with Mark Carney, he's already obliterated him in the House. Mark Carney's just going to put on his theatrics, just like Justin Trudeau, ham it up, disingenuous, fake garbage. Pierre's going to have to drill down, though, and really bring forward the issues that Canadians are feeling and start to pull that support back. If Pierre loses a ton of support over the next 4 or 5 months going into Christmas, then maybe his security in being the leader will be up for question. I don't see that happening.
You know, how do you see Pierre Poilievre take on this role now once again as the leader of the opposition in the House of Commons? Because now he's going to be up against a prime minister who still enjoys a decent amount of popularity versus the predecessor, Justin Trudeau.
Now he has to do something he hasn't had to do before.
Yeah.
He has to make the case for change. Pierre Poilievre, since he became the Conservative leader, had change at his back. It was his great ace card against Justin Trudeau. And of course, when that change occurred, he couldn't seem to manage those movements and push them toward his favor. And suddenly Mark Carney became the change agent and he was left behind. So now he's going to have to create the demand for change. Right now, Carney's polling ahead of Poilievre personally in terms of leadership. Right now, the Liberal Party and the Liberal government are polling ahead of the Conservative Party. So mission number one for Pierre Poilievre is to change that, to create a sense of demand for change across the country.
And
Pierre needs to get out to places, different podcasts, different platforms like short form TikTok stuff, get into places where people who don't follow politics will see him. That's what he has to do. Because Mark Carney's getting pushed on CBC with our tax dollars, billions of dollars, pushing out his name all over the place. And then people see that stuff. They're like, oh, okay, so we got a banker running our country. That must be a good thing, right? And they don't realize that Mark Carney is 90+% invested in America, not in Canada. The average Canadian doesn't know that. That's the problem. If the average Canadian knew that, then things would be different. Then the polling would be different.
how does he do that when the country is trying to navigate, of course, the big change that we've seen south of the border with Donald Trump in terms of strategy? Because while Mark Carney is talking about strategy with Donald Trump, Pierre Poilievre has to do something different and try and lead that file where tariffs is also concerned. How do you think that's going to work out? Because here we're dealing with the Prime Minister who's also an economist, worked, as we know, with Bank of Canada, Bank of England, trying to navigate this file maturely. How does that work?
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult balance for him because he wants to be a violent critic of the Prime Minister's performance, particularly on the trade file.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he can't look as though he's rooting against Canada. So I think look at what Pierre Poilievre has done recently, look at what he's done in the past, and that tells us that his focus is going to be returning to other issues like affordability. Polls show that affordability, people's pocketbook concerns, continue to be the most pressing concern. A lot of people haven't felt the pinch of the Trump and trade wars yet. So I think you're going to see Poilievre hammer and hammer and hammer away on these pocketbook issues, these bread and butter issues, both as a way of trying to create change against the government, but also insulate himself against the risk of looking like he is offside with Canada, with Team Canada, and with the Maple Leaf.
Yeah, that's just it. So Mark Carney has come in, promised change, and he's delivered more disastrous results. Just continuing Justin Trudeau's legacy and making things much worse. Canadians want real change, not this phony baloney change where politicians line their own pockets and don't do what they say, enrich themselves and all their friends, and we get stuck with the bill. See, Scott trying not to freak out. He'll lose it on YouTube later. Carney can't step down fast enough for Pierre. The only thing Carney has accomplished is a vacation.